Hello everyone, welcome to our channel Gateway to IT. In our last series of videos, we planned and created networks in VMware Workstation, installed domain controller, created host records and DNS for ESXi server and vCenter server. As you can see, here are the DNS records I'm talking about. And we installed the four ESXi servers, configured NTP service, time service on all the four ESXi servers by logging into their web GUI, and username as root and assigned password. Since we want to manage and administer our entire vSphere infrastructure from a central location, we need to now install a vCenter server. We require vCenter server to manage almost all the aspects of vSphere, such as creating, managing ESXi clusters, distributed switch, DRS storage, etc. So let's get started. For installing vCenter server on a physical device, you need to create a bootable USB drive and plug into the physical device and boot it from there. But when it comes to installation of vCenter server in VMware Workstation as a VM, the steps are slightly different and a bit tricky as well. So let me show you how we can go ahead and install it in VMware Workstation as a VM so that we can learn uh, without any expenses by creating just a VM. So here you can see in this folder I have already downloaded the vCenter server ISO from VMware. The evaluation version is always available to download from VMware website. So once you see that this ISO, you open this ISO. All you need to do is to go inside VSA, and you can see that there is an OVA file. OVA stands for virtual appliance. So it's available as a virtual appliance. So all we need to do is to extract it from the ISO, as I've already extracted here to save one time, and we need to open this OVA file uh, as an appliance in VMware Workstation. So what we can do, we can go to File, click on Open, and from here we can browse the location where we have our OVA file extracted. So just give me a moment. So here you can see that the I have selected the OVA file, and when I click on Open, we are prompted with this end user license agreement. We need to accept the end user license agreement. Click on Next. Here it wants us to provide the VM as we want to see in VMware Workstation. So as per my naming convention, I'm giving it VCSA for vCenter Server Appliance. And I also need to provide the location where I want to save this VM, the files that this VM creates, like the VMDK files or the configuration file. So I have provided it the path on one of my SSD. So now we need to click on next. Once we click on next, we are presented with some deployment option wherein we have to make choices if we are deploying this vCenter in a large environment or a tiny environment or a small environment. As you can see, when I have the first option selected, tiny vCenter server with embedded PSC, it depicts here that this will deploy tiny VM configured with 2 CPU and 10 GB of memory with 415 GB of disk space. So, and this will suffice for an environment where you can have 10 ESXi hosts and 100 VMs running on them. So, because this is a lab environment, so the tiny vCenter option, we will go with the default option selected and click on next. Once we click on next, we are asked for some configuration such as the host network IP address family. When you just highlight this exclamation icon, it gives you a hint that what you need to provide here as a value. So here we have two options. One is IPv4 and IPv6. So I'm going to give it IPv4 because I am using the IPv4 IP address scheme. Next, we need to go to the second option, and it wants to know whether the IP address we are providing is it static or we are planning to give it using a DHCP server. So here I because I will be configuring a static IP address, so I'm mentioning static. The third option is to provide the network IP address. So as per our record for vCenter server, you see I have already set the IP address 192.168.1.10 aside. So I'm giving it the same IP address. And here we need to provide the subnet mask. The default gateway points to our pfSense firewall. Here you need to give provide it the IP address of your DNS server because it is required for the authentication and all other purposes. In future for name resolution, and if we join it to domain, it is required for all those things. So you know that our domain controller's IP address is 192.168.1.5, and I'm also planning to install another domain controller once our ESXi server environment is up. So I'll be creating another domain controller with the IP address 192.168.1.4, and here it is asking you to provide the fully qualified domain name. So since we have created a record as VCSA, so the fully qualified domain name for this vCenter server is going to be vcsa.starkindustries.com. Make sure you're able to resolve this name to an IP address, and once you have done that, once you have ensured that the hosted record exists, you need to click on import. Once you click on import, it is going to start the VM as soon as the import is done. So please because it is going to bind it to the bridge network by default, but I want it to be on my LAN management or LAN segment for management servers on the management network. So as soon as it comes up and starts to boot it, we need to keep one finger on F2 key and hit rapidly on it unless we get the BIOS screen. That is just to make sure that it does not take the default network as bridge network, because we need to have it running on the management network with the ESXi server. So it's coming up. I need to make sure that I go to this BIOS screen, and once we are on this BIOS screen, we need to actually change the network setting from here. You click on network, and then you need to provide the LAN segment as management. So the F2 option that I selected to get to the BIOS is just to make sure that I have my vCenter server on the management network with other ESXi server, where all other ESXi servers reside and where we have the domain controller. So once we are done, we can click on OK. And as soon as you click on OK, you see that it shows as disconnected. So we need to make sure that we have it connected and click on OK. Once we are done making the changes on the network adapter, we need to hit F10 to save the settings and exit. So as soon as I hit on exit, now it is actually on our LAN management network, and will be proceeding with the installation. So here I'm giving a pause here for a moment till when the installation is going on. So you can see the screen for local login, but we don't have to do anything. We just need to wait for the next screen to appear. So don't try to provide any password or username here. Just sit back and relax. Once it is done, we will get some options to configure the vCenter server. vCenter server installation is it takes some time to install. So you need to sit back and relax, and don't worry. The installation for vCenter server is also pretty straightforward. So all we have to do at this moment, we have to just wait, sit back and relax, and look at the screen to see if the installation is going well. And in my opinion, I have done it like a number of times, and I never had to actually do anything uh, with this installation prompts with the installation. You have already provided all the settings on the initial screen when you were trying to import it, so it should go pretty well. Just in case you face any issue, you can always comment on my channel, and we can discuss it there. So as you can see, the installation is still proceeding, so let's wait here. So as you can see that the installation is done, and it has given us the two URLs, and also we are also getting the prompt that the password is not selected, password is not set. As you can see here, we also have an option to customize the system. So let's try customize it from the direct user console here. So let me hit on F2. Once I hit on F2, it asks me to provide the password. So, and this password is for the root account. So I am giving it the password. Make sure that you ensure that the password matches. Once you enter the DUC, we can go to the configure and management network and check the settings. If the settings look appropriate, yep, the setting to me they look appropriate. Let me go to the IPv6 configuration, because we do not have an IPv6 network. We are working with IPv4 networks only. So I'm unchecking this option by hitting spacebar. Once I hit spacebar to make my settings permanent, I need to hit on enter. Once I've done that, you can see IPv6 is disabled. Then I check my DNS configuration that looks appropriate with the host name and the IP addresses. And let's also check the custom DNS suffix. We do not have the custom DNS suffix yet. So let me provide it the custom DNS suffix as industries.com, hit enter. And in order to make this setting permanent, we need to hit escape. And once we hit escape, we can see that it asks us to apply the settings. And in order to do that, we have to press yes. So let me apply the setting, and it gives this error. This is okay. You don't need to worry about it. Just hit on enter, and the setting should be done in the background. You can verify it again. You can see the password is set. Troubleshooting mode, view support option, and let's hit enter to go back to the direct user console. So once we hit escape, you can see that the setting are here. Now we can go back to our admin console, admin workstation, then DC workstation 1, and try to access this URL from there. And if the settings are correct, we should be able to access it from there. So let me go to the workstation. Let me also move this VM with other VMs in the network on the VMware workstation. So we are on a workstation, admin workstation. Let me log into the admin workstation. So let's open the Edge browser and try to type HTTPS VCSA. Let me type it again. HTTPS starkindustries.com, and we can give the port number. The port number is 5480, as you can see here. This when we use this URL, it means that this is the management URL for the vCenter server, from where you can manage the specific settings on the vCenter server. And the URL below it is where you create all your clusters, and where you can manage the vCenter server or vCenter vSphere environment. So let me go back to the workstation, and I think if I show you from there, it will be more clear. So I'm typing the management URL 5480, and if our DNS name resolution is working, we should be able to hit it. So as you can see, we got the certificate warning as we got when we were working with the ESXi server installation. So all you need to do is to click on advanced, continue the warning with the message, and here you can see that vCenter server has been installed successfully. However, there are some additional steps that need to be performed from this particular screen. So if we are installing a new vCenter server, the the default choice or the choice should be set up a new vCenter server. For if you in case you are just upgrading or migrating from any previous version, restoring backup, you have the all of the three options. So since we are installing a new vCenter server, I will click on configure the setup for a new vCenter server. Let me provide the password that we set up from the direct user console. So I provide the password and click on login. And now we need to follow the prompt. Click on next. It is trying to retrieve the settings that we provided when we were importing this VM. So as you can see, it has imported all the settings that we had given when we were importing the VM in VMware Workstation. I'm also enabling SSH, so we don't have any warning now. We need to click on next. So it is saving all the settings that we provided. For uh, for managing the vCenter server, we need to create a default domain. Though we already have a domain controller with the domain starkindustries.com, but since this is a vCenter server and right now it is not joined to the domain, we need to have a single sign-on domain name, which is by default vSphere.local, and the administrator name through which we log into the vSphere Web GUI, vCenter Web GUI to manage the clusters, create clusters. So I'm providing a password here as well. Click on next, and it's prompting me to join the customer experience. So right now I'm not interested. So we uncheck the option and click on next. Now we are on a screen from where uh, we cannot go back, so make sure that you have verified all your settings, and once you are satisfied with the settings, you need to click on finish for the settings to start. You are also prompted that once you click on OK, you cannot revert back or go back to change any settings. So I'm okay with all the settings that I've provided, and I'm going to hit OK now. So now again, it is going to take some time on this screen. So all we need to do is to sit back and relax and look at the progress of the vCenter server setup. So I'm going to pause the video. If there is something that I need to show you, I'll resume again. Otherwise, I'll resume the video once this server setup is complete. So now you can see that it looks like we run into an error, but believe me, this is nothing but just just a timeout. Maybe the web UI is not refreshed or something. But once we click on retry, and if it does not work, you can just click on retry again and see if it refreshes. Otherwise, refresh the page by hitting on F5. Once you hit F5 and refresh the page, you should now be able to log into your vCenter server with the root, because as you can see, this is we when we type the port number for Y480, it means you're going to log into the vCenter server for the management. So make sure you are able to differentiate between the two URLs. Let me open the other one. ps vcsa dot starkindustries.com. Here I'm not giving any port, so you see the difference. This is for the VMware vCenter management. As you can see, this is for the, it specifically says here that this is for VMware vCenter server management. And on this URL where we do not have any port, we do not have any port here, and this one is for creating or administering our vSphere infrastructure. So ensure that you're able to differentiate between both the URLs. So right now I'm logging into the vCenter server management console by providing the root and the password we gave at the time of installation. So let's log in. And here we can see the overall health of our vCenter server is good. We do not have any issues. So that means the vCenter server installation went well without an issue. If you had run into any kind of issue, you would have seen health status, some error over here. Let me go to the monitor. It looks okay. Access is enabled. Networking, we can again verify the settings that we provided. So it looks good. Firewall, nothing here. Yeah, we can see the time zone, that the time zone is configured. Let me just you know, added the time zone here. Since we are in India, we can give it a time zone of our India time zone, ICE time zone. So go to Asia. You can select it. Calcutta, Istanbul. So here I am selecting Asia, Calcutta. So once I do that, let's go to the services console and ensure that all your services, the services that are set to automatic, are running. That means there were no issues at all when the installation with the installation of vCenter server. Update, don't need to worry about it now. Go to administration. Here you can see the password expired and the other things. Syslog and backup. So it looks like from the summary that our installation went well without any issues. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just create a bookmark for this URL on our bar, on our favorite bar. So VCSA MGMT, close this one. So now if we go to the URL, we can see VCSA MGMT and we hit on that. We are redirected. And here, this is the page from where we can we can manage our vSphere environment, like creating clusters and everything, all the vSphere aspects from here. So let me just make a bookmark here and then we will proceed further. So I may just writing VCSA and saving it, so I can see that here it is. I'm closing it and try to open it with the favorite. Yep. So when I click on, now here you need to provide the single sign-on username and password. If you remember, we gave the single sign-on username with the single sign-on domain as administrator at vsphere.local and provide the password. If we are able to log in, it confirms that the installation went well. And from here, we can see that we can now create our clusters, data centers, and manage all the things, all the aspects of vSphere environment. So we have successfully done the installation of the vCenter server on in VMware Workstation as a VM. Uh, in next videos, We will create the data center. We will create the cluster. If you like our work, please subscribe to our channel and do share it with your colleagues. Thank you.